Hey everyone, Happy New Year from the reVIEW, the web show where we take a look back at the top stories that featured on the Al Jazeera network. We also give you a chance to let us know how we've been doing in our coverage. It's been a pretty roller coaster week. We passed the 1-year mark of our 3 journalists held in prison in Egypt. We saw the Air Asia crash. First the plane was missing, then it was found, and also historic floods in Malaysia. Let's take a look back at the stories that had you talking.
It's early evening. They found the debris and bodies
Nothing like this for decades.
On Monday afternoon.
And the United States, as expected, voted against.
This corner of northeastern Malaysia hasn't seen flooding like this for decades. People had to leave their homes in a hurry after days of rain turned roads into rivers.
At the airport in Surabaya, Indonesia, people anxiously wait for news of their loved ones. 162 passengers and crew were on board Air Asia flight QZ8501 to Singapore.
The last of the passengers was airlifted from the crippled ferry on Monday afternoon, almost 36 hours after the fire first took hold. Italian and Greek helicopters worked a shuttle system, hovering above the burning ship.
We can confirm that there are at least 6 that have been taken from the water, probably more. Those will all then be coming here to the airport. There's going to be a facility or a couple facilities, rooms, where these bodies will be brought in for the identification process.
Just 8 votes, not enough for the Palestinians to claim majority support in the Security Council. The resolution would have set a 2017 deadline for an end to Israeli occupation. Australia and the United States, as expected, voted against.
A night of revelry quickly turned chaotic. This is the scene of what started out as a New Year's celebration. Instead, the injured lie on the ground, run down in a stampede on Shanghai's waterfront district, known as the Bund. The stampede started just before midnight. Police say they're still investigating the cause.
The program side of the channel saw some new and really interesting shows come out this week. We've got an investigative series on the U.S. justice system. There's also a heartbreaking story about farmers in Mexico who are fighting back against energy legislation. And our friends over at Empire took a stab at nation branding. Can it be done? And how well is it doing over there in the good old U.S. of A? Take a look.
And when he testified, get down here just a little bit and look at this.
Michael Malone analyzed the evidence in John Huffington's double murder case.
There were 2 hairs found at the scene under the bedsheet, one on the bedsheet itself and one on the garter belt of the victim. That was the key evidence that the prosecution brought up. That's what put him at the time and place of these murders. In 1999, an internal report found problems with what Michael Malone had done in the Huffington case.
With hair analysis, well, you're looking through a microscope. You don't know how many characteristics you have to match. You can choose how many match. And it's depending upon the person that's doing the analysis, not upon fact, not upon data, not upon a standard.
We knew that there were problems with this technique. There are many documented cases where analysts, including Michael Malone, but not limited to Michael Malone, have matched things like carpet fibers to head hair. He had not testified consistently with his notes. He'd excluded hairs without explaining why he was excluding hairs. He'd matched hairs without explaining why he matched hairs. He hadn't taken hair samples from all of the people who might have been in contact with the body. It was only when the FBI got involved again that they were able to actually test the hairs. So the FBI lab itself was the lab that eventually determined that John Huffington could not be matched through DNA to these hairs. They were able to interpret the shoddy work of their own analysts.
What about brand America? Can an entire country be branded?
America is freedom.
This is a country where anything is possible.
Regardless of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or disability.
That is the true basis of American exceptionalism.
We have led by our example as a shining city on a hill.
That American dream.
The American dream.
That great American dream.
Do Americans really believe in America as the greatest show on earth, they certainly work very hard at selling themselves to themselves and everyone else.
I like to think that what we're doing with this campaign is we're helping rekindle the world's love affair with America. We didn't realize it, but not everybody in the world is in love with America anymore, which was a little unsettling and a little surprising.
So is the Land of Dreams campaign proof that nations can be branded?
Well, over the last nearly 20 years, I've advised the governments of 53 countries on this kind of stuff.
Simon Arnold is a pioneer of nation branding and now believes that a campaign cannot brand a country.
Oh, I've had this conversation so many times over the years with governments who ring me up and they say, we have a crap image, can you fix it? And I always say the same thing. I say, are you perhaps a crap country?
¿Usted sabe lo que es la tierra para un campesino? Es su vida entera, porque esa tierra la tuvo de su padre, del padre, de su padre, y es lo único que tiene. Y las petroleras van a venir y nos van a arrebatar todo lo que es de nosotros.
Mexico's farmers are suffering the worst crisis the countryside has seen in 20 years. They're in danger of losing their livelihoods. Under the energy reforms, they could also lose their land.
No es justo. Da coraje, ¿no? ¿Cómo puede ser posible que en un país donde tenemos un gobierno rico y pueblo pobre?
Somos de aquí y somos nativos desde hace años, desde los abuelos. Y aquí vivimos, y si nosotros seguimos peleando, ¿por qué se comprometen a algo y no nos cumplen?
Nosotros ahí cultivamos el maíz, la calabaza, la yuca, el camote, la caña. Y cuando cosechamos nos daba una gran alegría. Y el día de hoy, a diferencia de más de 20 años, ya no es lo mismo.
The Al Jazeera network got a huge shock this week. On a day when we were expecting to welcome home our 3 journalists locked up in prison in Egypt, instead we learned that they're going to stay behind bars and go through a retrial. Now, Mohammed Fahmi, Bahir Mohammed, and Peter Gresta have spent more than a year in prison. They just hit that 1-year mark just last week. The Al Jazeera network has always maintained that the trial was flawed from the get-go and continues to demand the journalists' immediate release. For more now, let's hear from Andrew Simmons.
A new year and some new hope that 2015 will see their release. They're still living with the shock of their sentences. They didn't see a minute of freedom in 2014. Correspondent Peter Gresta, jailed for 7 years on falsified charges, has been using meditation as one means of getting by. His parents were allowed an hour-and-a-half prison visit on Christmas Day, and they say it's best not to be too optimistic about the appeal. Peter is trying to temper his hopes.
The difficulty of getting too hopeful and then finding it cut underneath his feet is truly devastating. And he did talk about the fact of how difficult it was when the verdict came down and that he had to face the thought of 7 years in prison.
There is so much about the Egyptian legal system that is unclear, to say the least. We know that an appeal is coming up, but any of the real possibilities that we normally would draw upon precedent in the Anglo-Saxon system is just not there.
Human rights groups, foreign governments and the vast worldwide protest campaign are united behind the hashtag #FreeAJ Staff that's gone viral. Producer Baha Mohammed is an Egyptian citizen jailed for 10 years. His wife, who lives in Cairo, gave birth to their 3rd child while her husband was behind bars.
All of my hopes rest on him being declared innocent and exonerated. It was a farce. No witnesses appeared in the trial, I wonder how they were indicted and then sentenced in the first place. There isn't a single piece of evidence against them.
The Cairo bureau chief Mohammed Fahmy, who has dual Canadian-Egyptian citizenship, was jailed for 7 years. He's still having to cope with a shoulder injury sustained before his arrest. His latest letter was part of a protest outside the Egyptian embassy in the Netherlands this week. 11 other defendants were tried in absentia and given 10-year sentences. 6 of them are Al Jazeera staff. This Dutch journalist, not connected with the network, but one of those convicted in absentia, read out Fahmy's message.
I accepted the job as Al Jazeera bureau chief because I recognized many excellent journalists that I worked for the channel. Our reporting was fair, balanced, and served the interest of no specific party or another.
Robbed of freedom and clinging on to their reputations as independent journalists, they're handling deprivation the best they can. But they're assured of one thing: their colleagues and a big international protest network won't give up until they're free.
Now, when we tell you that we take your questions and comments very seriously here at The Review, we're not joking. Free Joseph from the Caribbean sent us a message directly to our webpage, and he asked us, we watch Al Jazeera in the Caribbean, so why does the weatherman refuse to include the weather situation in the West Indies? Well, to get the answer to that, I'm joined by Al Jazeera meteorologist Rob McElway. Rob?
Hello.
So what is the answer?
Well, he's pushing it a bit, I think. We don't refuse to cover anywhere, but if you think about it, the weather is going to be focusing on where it's probably most unpleasant or most dangerous. That's rarely the West Indies, except during hurricane season. But if you listen to Everton Fox, who's a bit of a cricket fan, he'll take you there, I think, more often.
So I guess there's a good side to it. If no news is good news?
Yeah, very often that is the case.
All right, cool. Thanks, Rob. There you go. There's your answer. That's all the time that we've got for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, don't forget to log on to our website or keep in touch with us using Facebook, Twitter, or by email. And if you've noticed that big red record button on the bottom of the screen, that's where you can leave us a video comment. Just click the button, follow the prompts, and record your comment, and you will probably see yourself on the next episode of The Review. Thanks for watching.